call your attention to the book of Isaiah, chapter 48. And this is the first Sunday in the new year. And our focus for the next 6 months, or at least until I'm shifted out, is encountering testimony. Last 6 months we focused on transformation. And now, these next 6 months we'll focus on encountering testimony. And the reason I was considering changing my message is because, you want that first message of the new year to just, be a hit. Especially when you talk about encountering testimony, you want it to surge through people's bodies and spirits. The Lord is getting ready to do great things. But the Lord is going to do great things. But there may be some chastisement along the way. And that's just reality. Reality is every time the new year comes in and as one prepares to leave, we set these resolutions to do great and mighty things. And by March, that resolution is a tank. And you're not doing anything that you said you was going to do. So we're going to look at the text here today and ask the Lord to walk with us as we walk into the new year. Isaiah chapter 48, and I'm looking at verses 20 and 21. 20 and 21. I'm reading from the New King James Version. And it says, "Go forth from Babylon, flee from the Chaldeans, the voice of singing. Declare, proclaim this, utter it to the end of the earth. Say, the Lord has redeemed his servant Jacob. And they did not thirst when he led them through the deserts. He caused the waters to flow from the rock for them. He also split the rock, and the waters gushed out." I want to talk from the thought briefly of the Lord has. The Lord has. The B clause of verse 20 reads, "The Lord has redeemed his servant Jacob." My question to each of us this morning is, can you fill in the blank following the statement, "The Lord has"? Last year, 2018, Jennifer and I had our public wedding ceremony. We attended our first marriage conference. In April, Jennifer's grandmother passed. I received my first preaching engagement in the city of Omaha. I became the service chaplain for the parish, Protestant parish. Last year, Jennifer received her license to practice law in the state of Nebraska. I was promoted to captain. Jennifer received a career promotion. I was inducted as a member of the 100 Black Men of Omaha, which is an organization committed to the intellectual development of youth and the empowerment of the African American community based upon the precepts of respect for family, spirituality, justice, and integrity. We attended our first Air Force ball and Huskers game. Yeah. Jennifer was inducted as a member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, an organization that advocates for black women and girls to promote leadership development and gender equity in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. In late last year, the month of December, my mother underwent her first major surgery to remove a mass and her right kidney. Although I've listed a few highs and lows, I have not fully captured all of last year. Needless to say, in spite of the lows and reflecting on the highs, the Lord has been good to us. My brothers and sisters, in all honesty, Jennifer and I did not deserve all the blessings the Lord showered upon us in 2018. However, because He is God and can do whatever God wants to do, when God wants to do it, to whom God chooses to do it, it's all right with us. If you would take a moment to reflect on last year, you too can say that much of what you received was undeserving. As a matter of fact, Paul says, but God demonstrates His own love toward us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Friends, the Lord has done great things for us. And while I would love to dwell on all of the great things the Lord has done for us, He has also allowed some unfavorable situations to take place not only in our lives, but in our communities, in our nation, and in our world. This allowance was not alone permitted to draw us closer to Him, but to wake us up in the sins we're committing. The prophet Isaiah prophesied at the most crucial period in the history of Judah and Israel. Both the southern and northern kingdoms had experienced nearly a half-century of increasing prosperity and power. Israel, ruled by Jeroboam and 6 other minor kings, had succumbed to pagan worship. Judah, under Uzziah, Jotham, and Hezekiah, had maintained an outward conformity to orthodoxy, but had gradually fallen into serious moral and spiritual decline. Secret places of pagan worship were tolerated. The wealthy oppressed the poor. The women neglected their families in the quest for carnal pleasure. Many of the priests and prophets became drunken men-pleasers. While there will come one more revival in Judah under King Josiah, it was clear to Isaiah that the covenant recorded by Moses in Deuteronomy 30, verses 11 through 20, had been so completely violated that judgment and captivity were inevitable for Judah, even as it was for Israel. One of Isaiah's purposes was to declare God's displeasures with and judgment upon sin in Judah, Israel, and the surrounding nations. Almost all the Hebrews' words for sin are employed by the prophet. Parallel purpose was to endeavor to turn God's people away from the disobedience in order to avert disaster, a purpose that was only partially successful. Perhaps the greatest purpose, however, was to lay a foundation of hope and promise for the faithful remnant of God's people. Thus, the book of Isaiah is full of promises of restoration and redemption, of the certain advent of the Messiah, of salvation for all nations, and of the triumph of God's purposes in spite of intervals of suffering. Chapter 48 is sandwiched between chapters 40 and 66, where the theme of these passages is God's promise of comfort and peace to Israel. However, it perished in disobedience. In chapter 40, if you just walk through the Bible with me, in chapter 40 of Isaiah, verses 1 and 2, it says, "Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem. Tell her that her sad days are gone and her sins are pardoned. Yes, the Lord has punished her twice over for all her sins." God provides double for the sins of his people. Later on in this chapter, the prophecy of John the Baptist is foretold. But then as we move forward into the 40th chapter of Isaiah, it becomes the question as to whom can God be compared to. So often in life, we put things and people before God. We too, in modern day, in 2019, have our own idols that the Lord has to break us away from. And he too punishes us for sin, as he did in the days of Isaiah. In chapter 41, God's people are assured of his help. And God says that he will not throw Israel away. And he affirms his presence to his people. In verses 21 of Isaiah chapter 41, there seems to be a court case that is presented, because it says, present the case for your idols, says the Lord. Let them show what they can do, says the King of Israel. Let them try to tell us what happened long ago, so that we may consider the evidence, or let them tell us what the future holds, so we can know what's going to happen. Yes, tell us what will occur in the days ahead. Then we will know you are gods. In fact, do anything good or bad. Do something that will amaze and frighten us. But no, you are less than nothing and can do nothing at all. Those who choose you pollute themselves. And here in verse 25, God positions the rise of King Cyrus, whom he will use to bring his people out of the captivity of Babylon. God says, but I have stirred up a leader who will approach from the north, from the east. He will call on my name, and I will give him victory over kings and princes, and he will trample them as potter treads on clay. There are people in places and positions who think they have power. And while they do have a measure of power, they do not have the ultimate power of God.
Amen.
What am I saying? And I'm not siding with any political party whatsoever. I'm a preacher of the gospel, and I stand on the Lord's side.
Amen.
But when you put people in jeopardy, financial hardship, because you can't get what you want, and people can't pay their bills, and then there's the possibility that people who make decisions will get a raise while everybody else's pay is frozen, God will work with sin and deal with those individuals accordingly. But my brothers and sisters, while God is working on people in high places, what have we made idols in our own realm or in our own sphere of influence? What is it that we idolize, that we give that the credit for what God has done? In the past, God says in his word, as we'll find out as we keep reading, that God let them know ahead of time what he was going to do, because he had birthed a stubborn people. And because he knew of their stubbornness and their hard-headedness and their disobedience, God would foretell them what he was going to do with the hope that they would have some act right. But it doesn't matter what God puts in your spirit that he's going to do for you. We're still susceptible to flesh and to the sins of this life. And I'm so glad that even though God is in the business of chastising us for the wrongs and the deeds that we commit in this body, that he's still a God of love, he's still a God of grace, he's still a God of mercy, that he will not allow his wrath to overtake us to where we will never encounter the blessings of the Lord. In chapter 42 of Isaiah, Christ is prophesied, and it's also mentioned or highlighted about their lack of disobedience. In Isaiah 42, it says, "Look at my servant whom I strengthen. He is my chosen one who pleases me. I have put my spirit upon him, and he will bring justice to the nations." And watch this. "He will not shout or raise his voice in public. He will not crush the weakest reed or put out a flickering candle. He will bring justice to all who have been wronged. He will not falter or lose heart until justice prevails, not just in Nebraska, but throughout the earth. Even distant lands beyond the sea will wait for his instruction." In terms of Israel's failure to listen, God says, "Listen, you who are deaf. Look and see, you blind. Who is as blind as my own people, my servant? Who is as deaf as my messenger? Who is as blind as my chosen people, the servant of the Lord? You see and recognize what is right, but refuse to act on it. You hear with your ears, but you don't really listen. Because he is righteous, the Lord has exalted his glorious law. But his own people have been robbed and plundered, enslaved, imprisoned, and trapped. They are fair game for anyone and have no one to protect them, no one to take them back home." God got fed up with his people, and he turned them over to captivity. He turned them over to King Nebuchadnezzar. Why? Because sin was their God. Nothing that God did, nothing that God said was pleasing in their sight. Instead, they found pleasure in what God created and made an idol out of it. Thank you for that Lexus you gave me the other day. Really? This gave you a Lexus? This is what they did. They worshiped the things that God created. And God got fed up because it wasn't the things that he created that blessed them, but it was the Creator himself. And God is a jealous God. He don't want you to put anything else before him. Verse in chapter 43, God's protection is spoken of. Isaiah 43 verse 1, "But now, O Jacob, listen to the Lord who created you. O Israel, the one who formed you, says, do not be afraid, for I have ransomed you. I have called you by my name. You are mine." I like this. "When you go through the deep waters, I'll be with you. When you go through the rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I gave Egypt as a ransom for your freedom. I gave Ethiopia and Seba in your place. Others were given in exchange for you. I traded their lives for yours because you are precious to me. You are honored, and I love you." I want you to look at your neighbor. Look at your neighbor and say, "Neighbor." Come on, say it. You are precious to God. And he loves you. Yes, you don't do everything that God wants you to do. You don't do everything that God wants. You get what I'm saying. But God still loves you and still showers his grace, his mercy, and his protection in spite of you.
Amen.
We weren't deserving of waking up this morning because we cussed somebody out yesterday. All right, thank you for raising your hand. I thought I was the only one that did it. We're not deserving to be here today. But it's by what? The grace of God. In chapter 44, God says, who is like me? In verse 18 of 44 says, such stupidity and ignorance. Their eyes are closed and they cannot see. Their minds are shut and they cannot think. The person who made the idol never stops to reflect. Why, it's just a block of wood. I have burned half of it for heat and use it to bake my bread and roast my meal. How can the rest of it be a god? Should I bow down to worship a piece of wood? In chapter 45, the prophet speaks about Cyrus's reign, how God will empower Cyrus, and how the mighty men will be paralyzed with fear because of God's reign through Cyrus. God will go before Cyrus, and Cyrus will fulfill the Lord's purpose to free his people. In verse 23 of chapter 45, look there with me. I have sworn by my own name. I have spoken the truth, and I will never go back on my word. And this is familiar to all of us. Every knee will bend to me, and every tongue will declare my allegiance. The Apostle Paul later reiterated this in Philippians chapter 2, that every knee must bow, and every tongue shall confess that who? Jesus is Lord. Not the piece of wood that you got outside to make something with and to use to cook your food, but I am that I am.
Amen.
One day every knee will bow to me, whether you believe or unbelieve, whether you're a believer or unbeliever, and every tongue will confess that I am Lord. In chapter 46, all the idols are taken down and into God's captivity. God says, remember what he did in the past. 46 verse 9. Remember the things I have done in the past, for I alone am God. I am God, and there is none like me. Only I can tell you the future before it even happens. Everything I plan will come to pass, for I do whatever I wish. What is he talking about? I told you things of the future. He's going back when they were in Exodus, when they were in captivity with Egypt in the book of Exodus. God told Moses, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh, and I want you to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. But Pharaoh's going to have a stubborn heart. He's not going to give up easy. But Moses, I want you to take a staff and lift it up. It's going to turn into a serpent. And I want you to use that same staff and turn the Nile River into blood. I'm going to send a plague upon the people of Egypt to wake Pharaoh up, to let them know that I'm greater than your astrologers and your magicians. I'm greater than you who sit on the throne. I am God. I am the first. I am the last. Beside me, there is none other. My brothers and sisters, I don't know what you have raised up as idols in your life. But as you walk into the new year, if you want to experience and if you want to encounter the testimonies that God has for you, every knee must bow and every tongue confess that Jesus is Lord. I'm almost done. Chapter 47, Babylon is dethroned. And God speaks to Babylon about that destruction. And everybody that joined forces with them are going to go away. But then in chapter 48, our text for today, Isaiah speaks God's message to his people. He says, listen to me, O family of Jacob, you who are called by the name of Israel and born into the family of Judah. Listen, you who take oaths in the name of the Lord and call on the God of Israel. You don't keep your promises, even though you call yourself a holy city. Talk about depending on the God of Israel, whose name is the Lord of heaven's armies. Long ago I told you what was going to happen. Then suddenly I took action. All my predictions came true. For I know how stubborn and obstinate you are. Your necks are as unbending as iron. Your heads are as hard as bronze. That is why I told you what would happen. I told you beforehand what I was going to do. Then you could never say my idols did it. The idols couldn't say that they turned the water into blood. The idols couldn't say that they sent a plague of frogs and locusts. Idols couldn't say these things. My wooden image and metal God commanded it to happen. You can't say it. You have heard my predictions and seen them fulfilled, just like many of us, but we refuse to admit. And God says, now I tell you new things, secrets you have not yet heard. They are brand new, not things from the past. You cannot say, we knew that all the time. I wrestled with this, and I went to the Bible back and forth, back and forth. You know, what new things is it that God is talking about? What new things is he about to bring forth? The new things is that he did not tell them that I'm going to bring you out of captivity. But he just did. He did it, and he told them that this is going to be brand new. I'm not going to do what I've done in the past because you ignored it. You gave recognition to the idols. You was also not satisfied with it because you talked about how you wanted to go back to Egypt. But now I'm about to do new things. Secrets you have not yet heard. They're brand new. Not things from the past. You cannot say we knew them all the time. Yes, I will tell you of things that are not entirely new. He said, yes, I will tell you of things that are entirely new, things you have never heard of before. And he says this because, for I know so well what traitors you are. You have been rebels from birth, yet not for our sake, but for his sake, and for the honor of his name. He says, I will hold back my anger and not wipe you out. Watch this, and I'm closing, I promise. He says, I have refined you, but not as silver is refined. Rather, I have refined you in the furnace of suffering. Bless you. My brothers and sisters, you're not going to get to that testimony. You are not going to get to that blessing without going through some suffering. Jesus did not get us salvation without going through some suffering. If you want to have everything that God wants for you to have, you got to suffer. But you also have to yield in obedience to what God has told you to do. The Lord has done wonderful things. But the Lord has also allowed some damnable things to happen in order for us to experience the wonderful things that he has in store. So don't take it lightly. Don't beat yourself up too hard. Don't cuss God out if life gets too difficult in 2019. And then you get to the 2020 and say, oh, 2019 wasn't my year. It was just a hellish year. It's just horrible. No. Every year is like that. Is God with you in this year as he was with you last year? Do you plan to take him with you next year? My Bible says in Hebrews he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. If you yield in obedience to his will, there's no good thing that he will withhold from you. There's a song that they used to sing in my church that God has smiled on me. He's been good to me. He set me free. God has smiled on me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, now I'm found. Yeah, we all were blind, but now we can see. What has the Lord done for you? Can you fill in the blank? The Lord has. Gracious God, we thank you for what our eyes have seen, what our ears have heard. We ask that we look back over our life and encounter all of the things that you have allowed us to go through, that we can be able to fill in the blanks. The Lord has. Lord, you have done marvelous things. You have done wonderful things. But you've also done things to bring us back into focus, to let you know that you are still God, that you still sit high and look low, and we are still your people who need a Savior. And if there's anyone here under the sound of my voice that is lost in their sins, give them the testimony today. Give them the missing blank to the statement the Lord has. The Lord has saved me. The Lord has freed me. The Lord has washed me clean of my sins. We thank you for all that you've done and all that you're getting ready to do.